Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. So you might be wondering why your dog's behaviour might have suddenly changed. Maybe you worked really hard with them as a puppy, you went through all of the socialisation process and you feel like you've done a really good job, you've done lots of training with them, but their behaviour has now recently changed. Or maybe you've been working with your dog for a long time. Perhaps you've been working on reactive behaviour or anxious behaviour. And maybe you've just experienced some setbacks and now you're thinking, I thought we'd crack this, but now it turns out maybe we haven't. Is it the training that's not worked, or really what has caused this change now? The thing is that the behaviour training process is never really finished. So in this video, I'm going to explain about why that is, about why your dog's behaviour is constantly evolving and why it doesn't mean that your training actually don't work. So I think it'd be helpful to start with a little description of the difference between behaviour training and task training. So your task training, that's your sit, your down, your recall. Once your dog has learnt the steps and practiced it a bit, they know how to do that. It doesn't mean they will, we'll come back to that later. But this type of learning is about knowledge. Once they've learnt the steps, they've learnt the trick, the task. So that's a complete thing, start, middle and finish. Behaviour, though, is influenced by emotion and environment. And these things are both very, very fluid. So that means that your dog's behaviour choices will also be fluid, depending on what else is happening around them. So it's a bit like learning to drive. Once you know how to operate the car, you might think you're done. But once you then start taking your car into a new environment, suddenly you start making mistakes. Maybe you stall at roundabouts, or you forget to change gear, or something like that. You still know how to drive. You didn't forget how to operate the car, but the environment has changed, and so your behaviour has now changed. If you were back in the quiet street you started in, where you learned how to operate the car, your behaviour and your choices would have been very, very different. What about when you go on your driving test? Usually for most people, that's quite a stressful experience. So adding anxiety will also affect your behaviour and therefore the choices you make when you're driving. So you can get around a lot of this stuff just by practicing. And the more you practice in new places and under different conditions, the better you will get. And the less these things, this emotion or this environment will affect what you do and your behaviour. Now, dogs are the same. If you want your dog to sit while something that triggers them or scares them is passing by, they might not be able to do that at first. They still know how to sit, but the environment and the emotion is what's getting in the way. So we know our dogs are constantly learning. Our environment is constantly changing. If you look out the window right now and make a note of what you see and then check back again after you've finished watching this video, ask yourself, is it the same? I doubt it will be. Perhaps some litter is blown into the street. Maybe there's somebody walking on the pavement, or maybe somebody has passed on the pavement in the meantime. There'll be different birds. A cat might have walked up and down the street. A dog may have peed. Maybe there was a car parked there, but that's gone now. Somebody's put their bin out. And this is just a snapshot of your street in maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So we can see that so much can change, and it's changing really, really quickly. It's not just in your street. From day to day, there are lots of changes in our environment. The weather changes constantly, and that adds a new dimension to how our dogs experience their world. They'll meet new dogs. There'll be a delivery driver might put a parcel in your garden. They'll have new sniffs on their walk. Roadworks in a street that you normally walk on changes the way that place feels and looks and how it smells. Cooking in the kitchen, if you're cooking something you've not cooked before, there'll be a new smell in there. The TV might sound different today. There might be a new movie that you're watching, which is, your dog's not experienced the sounds of gunshots from your movie or something like that. Adding new furniture or even a throw or a cushion changes the environment in your living room. Adding candles changes the smell. New cleaning products, having a visitor come, going to new places. I mean, that's the ultimate new environment when you go to a completely different place. Maybe just walking down a different street on the way home from the park can offer your dog a completely new experience. So our environment changes very, very quickly. And every time it changes, your dog experiences something new and they learn from that. Just like us, dogs are adaptive creatures, so when something new happens, they learn something from that and adapt their behaviour. It's not just changing environments that force our dogs to adapt either. Emotion plays a huge part in behaviour choices too. So an excitable visitor might come to your home and that might excite your dog, which might then cause their behaviour to change. Maybe instead of just sniffing around the new visitor, they get really excited and start barking or jumping around. Maybe they mouth and grab at feet or clothing. Maybe they go to the park and a dog is barking at them in the park and they might find this quite frightening. Fear is a massive motivator for permanent and fast change. It won't take very many scary experiences before your dog starts avoiding something similar. So all things considered, when a dog is faced with so much change and so much emotion and emotional changes, there is a constant need to adapt. So the question of whether it will lead to a behaviour change really comes down to just two things. Did their adaptation make them feel safe or happy? I really hope you're getting lots of useful hints and tips and ideas from watching the videos here on my YouTube channel. Behaviour training, though, is a complex thing, and there are so many variables and options and different ways to approach things. And sometimes working on it alone can feel quite lonely and frustrating at times. Sometimes you'll question whether you're doing the right thing or whether you might even be making things worse. If this is you, don't worry. I'm here for you. Privately, I can guide you through and support you through the process wherever you are. We'll start with an assessment session where I'll get to know your dog. I'll get to learn what makes him tick, any history. We'll learn about the behaviours you need help with. And then once we've figured out what's gone wrong and what techniques will suit him best, we'll make a plan just for him. Then we'll follow up with a series of private sessions where we'll address the root cause, work on related behaviours, boost resilience, and build on the behaviour training plan together until you have something that is working for you both. If that's something that's of interest to you, please check out the information on this video for details about how to get in touch and how to find out more about how I can navigate you through this process. So dogs have two goals in life. We do as well. They need to feel safe and or happy. So all behaviour choices must make them feel good or safe, or they must avoid feeling bad or unsafe. So if it ticks these boxes, then it will affect future behaviour choices and most likely be repeated. If it doesn't achieve those goals, then other choices might be explored. I said earlier, this could happen to any dog. People often get frustrated because they feel like they socialised their dog from a puppy, that their dog used to be good with other dogs. They had a great time playing with other dogs, and then just one day they're not. It's easy to blame yourself, but you can socialise your dog all day, every day, and still end up with a dog that changes their behaviour later on. In a constantly changing environment, which is ready to trigger an emotion in your dog at any time, it is unreasonable to expect your dog's behaviour to remain the same, no matter what. We never know what's going to happen next. We crave actions and responses that make us feel safe and happy. And every dog is vulnerable to a rapidly changing environment. Sometimes their behaviour will adapt for the better, sometimes it won't appear to change at all, and sometimes it will change in a big way. But it all comes down to how they adapt at that moment and whether it makes them feel safe or happy. So we can never say our behaviour training is done because we simply don't know what's going to happen next on your next walk. Maybe your dog will find a chip in a bush and will always check that bush for chips until the end of time. Or maybe they will get a fright from a road digger and avoid that spot like their life depends on it. Or maybe nothing will change, at least not noticeably to you. But if it does, now you can just move on knowing that you didn't cause that, you didn't fail, and neither did your training. The environment changed, your dog adapted, and he learned something new. But he can unlearn that. If you've already had a training plan in place, just go back to your training plan, go back a few steps, build that confidence back up again, and you'll get back to where you started again. Your training has not been lost. You've just had a little setback. And if you haven't had a training plan and this has come as just a big surprise to you, then there is so many things that you can do to help your dog. I've got loads of videos about building confidence using clickers, reactive behaviour, so check that out. Or get in touch with me and we can work together and solve the problem together. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Take care.